Welcome back. It's your D122W1 to part 4 of our UltraClean exercise. And there'll be more parts to this. There'll be 5, probably 6 parts. I'm thinking by the time we get done with this. But what we're going to do in this video is work on the pop dots. And we saw examples of the pop dots, these kind of things, and we could put them on any kind of selection or a circular selection, and we can make copies of them. We can make them different colors. We could put shadows behind them. We could put strokes on them. We could do all kinds of things with pop dots, but they look kind of cool because they fill up space nicely and they give kind of a retro kind of look. And because we're working with laundry detergent, it gives kind of a neat, kind of bubbly kind of look too. So that's why we're doing that. So I'm going to go to my instructions because I have pop dots instruct. So I don't think I need UltraClean sample. Here I have this. I don't need this anymore. I'm going to close that file up, and I'm going to go back here and open up my pop dots instruct because these you need to follow. So normally I'm like, well, just watch what I do, but I'm going to follow this because there's little things you have to watch. And as you remember from working with the bridge exercise, the channels, they're not easy. You got to really watch what you're doing because you get that the red thing takes over, and you got to make sure you go back to RGB, all kinds of stuff. So let's just see how it starts here. And this is from Photoshop, so this should work just like Photoshop, other than they don't have a load selection. I think I put a thing down here. In Photopea, there's no load selection, and then something got cut off here. So I'll have to fix that, but you have to use this thing down here. The arrow's not even pointing that, so I'll have to fix this handout, but you have to use this thing to load the selection. So whatever happened here, then I'll fix that for you. But we did that in the bridge exercise, so let's follow what we have here so far. Most of it we should be able to follow. So channels palette, you're going to make a new background color, and then we're going to make a circular selection on it and fill it with white. And then I think we're gonna blur it so it looks like this, so it looks like a big black blur. We're gonna invert. It's gonna be a white blur, then we're gonna invert it and it'll look like a black blur. Then we're gonna do that so that you see the dots are black here. I just want to point out, see how those dots are black? We want the dots white. That's why we have to do this weird inverting thing. And then we're gonna want it to look like this. See, the dots are white. And if you do it wrong, you'll see what I mean. Like, you'll know it. Even though it'll still look okay, you want the dots to look the color that you want. So, and we're going to make these big dots. So it's just a filter that's meant to use like 4 colors, but we're going to just use it with 1. And we're going to make a selection. So that's what we're going to do. So let's follow this again. We're going to go to Photopea. Now, we are going to have to do everything we do on a layer, a new layer. So whether you make a pop dots layer now or later, it's up to you. But I'm going to go to channels first. And we don't duplicate any of these channels, so we're not dragging anything down here. We're just making a new channel. And to make a new channel, you just go down here. Let's see, new channel. We're going to use that icon, new channel. And there it is. It's just black. And then what we'll do is we'll make a circular selection for now. Just use an ellipse. Just make a nice circle. And you could hold shift if you want to keep it circular. If you go in the middle here, you can kind of move it around. I think it'll let you kind of put it in the middle of the page, these little red guides. And then down here, if you click that and then switch that, you want white as your fill color. And let's see if this works. I had some issues with it, but I'm on alpha right now, and it's the only one showing. And if I do Option Delete, now if you're on Windows, you would do Alt Delete. Let's just see if this works. It should fill it with white. Alt Delete. Oh, that worked. I had a problem the last time I did it. If you did have a problem, you could go Edit, Fill, and choose foreground color, which is that color, or you could choose white. But it worked, and that's what I want. Now, I still have a selection around here. I know it's hard to see, but I have a dotted line selection around here that's going around here. So I want to do Command D and deselect. I want to go deselect, Command D or Control D if you're on Windows. I'll just choose that. So you won't see that dotted line selection, but you'll still have that white circle there. And before we do anything else, we're going to blur it. So we're still on alpha 1, and I'm going to blur it by going to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and it's not coming up, I think, because might be on that tool. Let me go back there. Let me click here. Let me try it again. Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. Let me go on a layer. No, I don't want to be on a layer. Oh, now it works. Let me just see why it did that. Do I have to be on a layer to do that? What if I went on orange background and the channels? Again, you just want alpha selected. And now if I go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, now it's working. I must have to be on a layer for the alpha to work. Again, I'm learning some things as I go through here. And I just want to make it a big soft kind of blur. Now it's not going to blur anything else. It's only going to blur that alpha because that's what I'm on. So I'm going to blur that alpha so it's a big soft circle. And then I'll hit OK. And then let's go back to the instructions. Filled it with white. We got the fill to work. We deselected. We did a Gaussian blur. We have to be on the layer. I have at 40. It's probably a lot more than that, so don't worry about that setting. And then we're going to invert. Okay, so we're going to go back here and we're going to invert it. So we're still on alpha. And we're going to go, where's invert? Image, adjustments, invert. There it is. So now we have the black blur, and what we're going to do on the black blur is run a filter again. So I guess we still have to be on a layer, so apparently I'm on orange BG, and that allows the filters to work. So I'm going to go back to channels again. You're on your alpha. Make sure it's selected. Filter, pixelate, color halftone. And move this aside, and that's too small. What we're going to do is we're going to make all these angles 45. So angle 1, 2, 3, they're RGB. We're going to make these 45. It'll just look better like that. 45, 45. Now, right now, it's hard to tell. You'd have to zoom in. And I'm going to make this a lot higher. And you could just drag it just until it looks good. Now, you can see the more blur you have, the more dots you'd have. Now, I think I had it somewhere like 36, I mentioned. And that looks okay. And you could always make this bigger. So right now, you can make it bigger. You can make the dots bigger here if you want. I don't know how good that'll look if you make the dots really bigger here. But I think 36 looks good. So I'm going to stick with that. That might vary based on how big you made your circle, but I'll leave it at 36 for now. All 45s, 36. And it's on my alpha. So notice they look like circles, but right now, if I filled anything with that selection, it would fill the white part. So I need to invert it one more time. That's why we invert it twice. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Invert. And now the circles are white. So what we're going to do is we're going to blast color through there and make our pop dots. So get ready, because this is important. After your alpha 1 looks like that, make sure that you click on your RGB and you don't click on alpha, because if you do, you're going to get that red thing. So you don't want alpha selected and you want RGB selected. Then go back to layers and make a new layer, because we want to put our pop dots on a new layer. And we want to do it actually right above orange, because we want it underneath the text. And we're going to go here on the orange layer and add a new layer. Right here, this little thing, add a new layer, and we're going to call it pop dots. And we have to load a selection. Now, they still don't, we don't have load selection that I've seen anywhere. I don't know why they don't have load selection in here. It's just bizarre. They have save selection, they don't have load selection, unless I'm missing it. But the only place I found to load selection is to actually do this again. So now that you have this layer pop dots, you have the layer pop dots, you made it above orange, you're on it. Go back to channels, go back to alpha. You're just like, oh, I thought I was done with alpha. Go to alpha and select it. And now click on this thing. Remember doing this for the bridge? Click that. That gets the little dotted line selection active. And then you're done with that. That's all you got to do. So if you go back here, that will not, your little selection will not go away. So go back up to RGB and then go back to layers. This is not selected. And now you see that dotted line selection is active. Now what you're going to do is fill it. And you could fill it with any color. Right now it would be white. You could do it with like a light blue. If I went down here to swatches, I chose a light blue or something, and I can double click on this, make it a little lighter. I'll hit OK. Now what I can do is do Option Delete or Edit Fill. Let me see if Option Delete or Alt Delete works for you. Alt Delete, and look at that. Pretty awesome. Now, once you fill it, get rid of the selection. Go to Select, Deselect, And now you have pop dots. And what could you do with pop dots? You could make them bigger. If you want them really big, you could make multiple pop dots. You could make this thing gigantic like that. You can make it smaller. You can turn down the opacity. You can do anything you want with your pop dots. I'll put it in the middle here. I'll even turn down the opacity. Make them really, really light. Although they don't look good with that green color. And if you didn't like it, that color, you don't have to keep filling it again. When you want to change the color, that's where you do the color overlay. That's where you go to layer style, color overlay, and you can use any color you want. You could go back and make them white. You can make them yellow. And you could do something like that. And you hit OK. And then maybe still you don't want the opacity so high, and you could turn the opacity down and do something like that. And there's some cool pop dots. You can make them even bigger if you want. And turn the opacity down even more. Whatever you want to do. Let me show you one other thing with pop dots. I haven't done this for a while, but let me just show you here. If we want to make a selection that's going around this text, let's make some more pop dots. Might as well go crazy with pop dots. I'm going to go on to my It's Clean layer, that layer. That's the one we just did. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to control click on Windows or command click. And actually, where you do it, you have to go right on here. So if you're on Windows, try control clicking right here. I'm going to command click if I'm on a Mac. And you see that selection there? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to select, modify, expand, and it's telling me to expand by a certain amount of pixels. So let me go like 60 and hit OK. And you can see that selection going around there. And maybe I'll expand it again. Select, modify, expand. I'll go 72. Now I'm not sure if this will add to it or not. Let me go a little less. Let me go select, modify, expand, and instead of 72, let me go like 40, because I think it's adding to it. Okay, it's adding to it. So there's a selection. Now watch this. Here I have a selection. Now, if you don't want to do this, you think that's too complicated, skip it. But I'm making a selection. This is just like the circle thing. So then if you'd want to do pop dots of this, you could go down here, make a new channel called alpha 2, and then fill it with white, just like we did with the circle. You can go down here, make this white, switch them so that the foreground color is white, and you can do option delete. And let me go here and do option delete. This is where I said it wasn't working, and I think it has something to do with, I don't know why it's not working. I have a selection. I'm on my channels. I'm on this particular channel, and I should be able to do option delete to fill it, and it's not working. Let me try edit fill. Normal, foreground, let me hit OK. And it's not working. Let me go on the pop, let me go down here. Let me just click on the pop dots layer for some reason. And let me go back to channels. And let me go in alpha 2. Let me try option delete. It might be the same reason. There it goes. Seems like you have to be on a layer, and it didn't like being on the text layer. It have to be on a layer that's selected. So just for it to activate, I guess. Again, not the easiest thing. So there it is, and now I can do Command D, get rid of the selection, Command D or Control D, or do Select Deselect. And now I could do Filter Blur, Gaussian Blur, and I'll just increase it so it looks blurry. A little more. I'll hit OK. Now I have this blur here. Remember what we had to do? We had to go Image Adjustments, Invert. And now I'll do that color halftone thing. That was Filter, Pixelate, Color Halftone. And again, 45, 45, 45. Oh, I hit tab. It didn't let me tab to the next one. 45. And I'll make this 45. And I'll make this 36 again. Or just slide it over, 36. Maybe a little less. Maybe I'll just go to like 26. And I'll hit OK. And then do you remember what you do? You invert it again. Image, Adjustments, Invert. and now you have that selection that you can activate. Now I can activate it right now because I'm here, so let me activate it. I'll click there, and now it's activated. Now I have that dotted line thing activated. Now I want to go back to RGB, and I want to go to layers. Now I don't want to do anything until I make a new pop dots layer. So let me make a new layer here, right here, and you can keep this selection active. Just make a new layer, and I'll just call it, double click here, and I'll call it pop dots dash text, and I'll hit enter. And now what I can do is, oh, see, it looks like it filled something on my text. I'm going to do option delete, and or let's try a blue color. Let's go here, make it kind of an aqua blue, or maybe just a light blue here, something like that, and I'll hit OK, and let me do option delete, and there's my pop dots. And I'll do Command D. So now I have pop dots on top of pop dots, except what happened here? My UltraClean looks like it lost its color. I think at some point when we were doing option delete, it lost its color. It filled the text with white. That's why it wasn't good that I was on that layer. That's why I went down here. But no problem. What can you do with that? You can go double click on effects and do a color overlay, and make sure that you turn this back to blue. And that was our original blue, something like this one down here, if I can get on it. Make it a little darker. There we go. That way it's using a color overlay to make it blue, and you could change it if you want. So somehow that got changed. Those bubbles could be white, the bubbles could be brighter if you ever want to change the bubbles. The pop dots, now we made them blue, but remember, to change color, don't go back and try to fill it. Just go on that layer and go to layer style, and color overlay is always the best place to change color. They're blue bubbles, dark blue bubbles. If you want them maybe a little more aqua color. Does that look cool? That might be okay. Make them a little lighter. You can even put white strokes on them if you want. There's some white bubbles. They look a little better. Make them really white. You can even put a bevel and emboss on them if you want. All kinds of cool stuff you could do with pop dots. So I don't want to get carried away with pop dots, even though I just got carried away with pop dots. And I could have just even made I could have taken my lasso tool and made a selection and made a channel. So remember, we have two channels here. One was for the circular pop dots. This was for that. And now there's no reason to go back in there, because you could keep just duplicating these pop dots if you want to. If you wanted to make those other pop dots bigger, the text pop dots, make them bigger. Make them, crop off the page if you want to. You could do that. Looks fine. Lots of pop dots going on here. If the original pop dots, if they're too intense, turn down the opacity even more. Just kind of have them very subtle in the background. Now don't forget, we're going to put images in here, so those pop dots don't have to be so intense. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to make sure I do file save, and this is saved right now. So we did two versions of pop dots. You got a bonus there because I was only going to do the one pop dots, but it's kind of a cool thing. But I do have the instructions there. You have to follow them, and it is a little tricky going back and forth here. I was even having problems because it wanted me to be on a layer before it filled the channel. It wanted me to be on a layer before I ran a filter. So always just choose the last layer. Pick the last layer with whichever layer is not going to create any problem. A big orange layer isn't going to create any problem. You can always fix that. But you can see what happened. I was on a text layer and it filled the text with white. So anyway, now we have this set up so we can throw some images in there. So we could get some shirts, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff in there, and kind of work with our layout a little bit more with some cool imagery in here. And then we're hopefully going to be done, maybe the next video, maybe the video after that. But this was part 4, our pop dots. Hope you enjoyed that. I may upload all these so you can get working on it while I'm still recording other videos. But for now, enjoy the pop dots. Pretty cool effect. And we're getting into some cool Photopea stuff, and this is also the same in Photoshop. So there's nothing I'm doing here that you can't do in Photoshop. Maybe a little bit different here and there, but for the most part, This is all Photoshop type stuff, so it's pretty cool working with channels and all that kind of stuff that you can do. So not only can you use channels to select things, but you could use channels to make cool effects like pop dots and run filters on channels. You can blur, you can run color halftone, we're doing all that, and then you can just activate it, load the selection. That's what we're doing. We're loading the channel selection by clicking on this thing. We're loading it, and then we're just filling it and scaling it and doing anything you want. So pretty cool stuff in Photopea on our ultra clean exercise. That was part 4. So part 5 will incorporate bringing in images, which should be easier than what we did so far, and then maybe there'll be one more video to kind of wrap things up at the end. So anyway, that's part 4 of ultra clean. We'll be back part 5 and get some images in here.